Welcome back to the show, everyone. Last week,
Yeah.
we left off with Hernan Cortez
Right.
in Tenochtitlan,
Uh-huh.
the Aztec capital,
Yeah.
with their emperor,
Yep.
Montezuma,
Mm-hmm.
held hostage.
It was tense.
It was a tense situation, to say the least.
It really was. A small band of Europeans,
Right.
heavily armed, of course.
Of course.
Right in the heart of a vast empire.
Oh, yeah.
Powerful empire.
A city of canals and temples.
Canals and temples.
I mean, totally unlike anything
Completely different.
I'd ever seen before.
Yeah, and they weren't just visitors.
Right.
I mean, they came to conquer. They
Yeah.
wanted gold, glory,
Glory.
and to, convert everybody to Christianity.
Of course, yeah, bring them religion, too.
But as we'll see today, holding a city hostage
Right.
is a lot harder than taking in the first place.
It's a lot easier to get in
Absolutely.
than it is to stay in and control the situation.
Things are going to go very wrong for Cortez
Okay.
and his men. It's a story of miscalculation,
Yeah.
cultural misunderstandings, and ultimately a desperate fight for survival.
So Cortez decides to leave Tenochtitlan for a bit.
Yeah.
He's got to deal with some rivals
Right.
who landed on the coast.
A rival Spanish force.
Another Spanish force.
Yep.
Probably thought he could handle things quickly
Probably, yeah.
and get back before anything major happened.
Big mistake.
Big mistake.
Yeah, leaving a lieutenant in charge,
Right.
it's always risky,
Yeah.
especially when that lieutenant,
Especially when it's...
someone like Pedro de Alvarado.
Okay.
Now, Alvarado
Yeah.
was known for his love of gold, his
Yeah.
quick temper,
Yeah.
and his tendency to, shall we say...
Overreact.
So Cortez leaves the city,
Mm-hmm.
which is already a powder keg.
Already on edge.
Yeah.
Montezuma's a prisoner.
Right?
There are rumors swirling, tensions building.
Yeah, and then comes the festival of Toxcatl.
A major religious celebration for the Aztecs.
Yes,
So
exactly.
this festival is a big deal, right?
Huge.
It was like music, dancing,
Music.
and even a planned sacrifice
Right.
to the god Huitzilopochtli.
Yes, and keep in mind,
Yeah.
the Spanish already viewed
Yeah.
Aztec religious practices
Yeah.
with horror disgust.
Uh-huh.
They saw the sacrifices as barbaric.
Yeah.
And Alvarado, already paranoid, was
Mhm.
primed to see threats everywhere.
He's ready to jump at anything.
Exactly.
Plus, there were rumors
Right.
that this festival was going to be the cover for an uprising.
Possibly spread by indigenous groups
Okay.
who hated the Aztecs.
Who hated the Aztecs.
Yeah.
So they saw an opportunity.
Yeah, it's hard to know for sure
Right.
what Alvarado truly believed.
Right.
But what we do know
Yeah.
is that he panicked.
Panicked.
He saw the festival, the crowds, the rituals, and he saw a threat.
Okay.
And instead of trying to understand
Right.
what was happening,
Instead of just like chilling out.
he decided to attack
Oh, no.
right in the middle of the festival.
So in the middle of this religious festival,
Yeah.
Alvarado and his men
Swords drawn.
go in, swords drawn.
And attack the unarmed celebrants.
Oh, my God.
Can you imagine?
The music, the dancing, the vibrant colors,
Turning into carnage?
suddenly turning into a scene of absolute carnage.
The Spanish accounts themselves
Yes.
describe the chaos and brutality.
Wow.
They talk about blood running in the streets,
Wow.
people being cut down as they tried to flee.
Oh, wow.
It was a massacre.
A massacre.
Plain and simple.
And this massacre, this act of senseless violence,
Yeah.
is going to have huge consequences. It's the point of no return.
The Aztecs,
Yeah.
understandably, are enraged.
They're going to be mad.
They launch a counterattack,
Yeah.
besieging the Spanish.
In Montezuma's palace.
Suddenly, the conquistadors, who thought they were in control,
They thought they were running the show.
trapped, outnumbered.
Why fighting for their lives?
And then Cortez,
Yeah.
fresh off his victory on the coast,
Yep.
marches back to Tenochtitlan,
Expecting a hero's welcome.
expecting a hero's welcome, right?
Yeah, instead he walks into a war zone.
Talk about bad timing.
Incredible moment in history.
Here's Cortez,
Yeah.
ambitious, cunning conquistador.
Who had seemingly pulled off the impossible
Right.
by capturing Montezuma.
Yeah.
And now, because of Alvarado's actions,
Right.
his entire plan is falling apart.
So Cortez is back in Tenochtitlan,
Yep.
trapped with his men,
Surrounded.
surrounded by a furious Aztec army.
Furious.
And Montezuma, the key to his control over the city,
Right.
is caught in the middle,
His position is precarious,
to say the least.
to say the least. The Spanish need him to try and calm his people,
Right.
but the Aztecs see him as a traitor.
As a puppet.
A puppet of the invaders.
Right.
His power is waning,
Yeah.
and the situation is spiraling out of control.
And then, in the midst of this chaos, Montezuma dies.
Montezuma dies.
But the circumstances of his death
There.
are shrouded in mystery, aren't they?
Shrouded in mystery.
Yeah.
We have different accounts.
Like what?
Some saying he was struck by a stone,
A stone.
thrown by one of his own people,
Oh, wow.
while trying to address them from the palace roof.
Oh, so maybe they thought he was a traitor.
Others suggest that the Spanish,
Okay.
realizing he was no longer useful,
No longer useful.
killed him themselves.
Oh, wow.
And still others
Really?
believe he deliberately exposed himself to death.
Choosing to die rather than continue as a prisoner of the Spanish.
Yeah.
Wow, what a tangle of possibilities.
Yeah.
So we may never know for sure
Right.
exactly how Montezuma died.
No.
But what's clear
Absolutely.
is that his death is a turning point.
Montezuma was more than just a ruler.
Yeah.
He was a symbol, a god king.
Okay.
And his death, no matter the cause,
Mhm.
shatters
Well,
any remaining hope of a peaceful resolution. It also removes the last shred of Cortez's authority in the city.
Yeah.
He's lost his bargaining chip.
So picture this. You are Cortez.
Okay.
You are trapped in a hostile city.
Yep.
Surrounded by a furious enemy.
Yep.
Your puppet ruler is dead.
Yeah.
And your lieutenant just massacred a bunch of people during a religious festival.
Not a great situation.
Not a great situation, right?
Not at all.
Wow.
And in our next episode,
Okay.
we'll explore the dramatic events of the Nostrist,
Yeah, it's trist.
or the Sad Night,
Oh, sad night, okay.
when Cortez and his men make a desperate attempt to escape from Tenochtitlan.
Oh, wait.
And trust me,
Yeah.
it's a story you won't want to miss.
Stay tuned because things are about to get even more intense. Subscribe now so you don't miss the next part of our deep dive into the conquest of Mexico. So Cortez and his conquistadors, they're trapped in Tenochtitlan.
Trapped, outnumbered.
Outgunned, you could say,
Yeah.
and the whole city's rising up against them.
I mean, their only option is to escape.
Precisely. But how?
Tenochtitlan wasn't your average city,
Right.
built on a lake, connected by causeways,
Right.
which the Aztecs had now blocked,
Right, I remember those causeways.
heavily guarded.
Yeah, it's not like they could just hop in a car and
No,
speed away.
they're trapped on an island, essentially.
Yeah, so Cortez, I mean, he was a brilliant strategist,
He was.
but even he must have.
Oh, yeah, he had to have felt the pressure.
Yeah, felt a knot of dread.
It was a dire situation.
Incredibly dire.
So he decided their best shot was to try and sneak out under the cover of darkness.
I imagine there was some debate about when and how
Of course.
to even attempt this escape.
Yeah,
Did they try to negotiate at all?
I don't think so.
Or was it clear that all trust had broken down?
Any remaining trust had evaporated.
After the massacre, especially.
The Aztecs were furious.
Yeah.
Cortez had lost all credibility.
Right.
He realized negotiation was futile.
So their only hope
Their only hope was to flee.
was to flee.
Yeah.
Okay, so they decide to make a run for it
They do.
on the night of June 30th, 1520.
June 30th.
And they're not just trying to sneak out a back door or something.
Yeah.
They've got all their men.
Their indigenous allies.
Their allies.
Whatever treasure they can carry.
Wow, and do they have like horses and stuff?
Oh, yeah, and let's not forget the portable bridge they built.
Hold on, a portable brig.
The portable bridge.
Okay, Cortez was thinking on his feet,
Resourceful guy.
but trying to move a wooden bridge
Yeah.
in the middle of the night
In the chaos
during this escape
being attacked.
while being attacked,
Logistical nightmare.
that had to have been a logistical nightmare.
It was, but he was desperate.
Desperate times.
He knew if they got bogged down at a
Mhm.
broken section of the causeway, they were done.
So imagine the scene.
Okay.
It's a moonless night.
It's raining.
Raining.
The Spanish are crammed into the palace
Crammed in.
with the sounds of Aztec war drums
Oh my God.
echoing all around them.
They're trying to slip out as quietly as possible.
As quietly as possible, but...
But the Aztecs are expecting something right.
Oh, absolutely.
They're not stupid.
The Aztecs were no slouches when it came to warfare
Right.
and intelligence.
Yeah.
They had scouts positioned around the city,
Yeah.
watching the Spanish every move.
So soon as they start to move.
As soon as the conquistadors begin to move,
Yep.
the alarm was raised.
Okay. So much for a quiet escape.
All hell broke loose.
All hell broke loose.
Yeah.
What happens next? Take us into this desperate fight.
It was a scene of absolute chaos,
Cave.
action. the Spaniards
Yeah.
and their allies,
Okay.
weighed down by armor and treasure,
Oh, yeah, they're carrying all this stuff
desperately trying to make their way across the causeways
in the pitch black.
in the pitch black.
Wow.
All around them,
Yeah.
Aztec warriors attacked from canoes,
Oh.
from the rooftops, from every direction.
They're everywhere.
It was a terrifying, brutal free-for-all.
And that portable bridge. Yeah, the
Would
bridge.
work?
It did work for a short while.
Oh, okay.
They managed to use it to cross a couple of the gaps,
Okay.
but under the pressure
Yeah.
of the attack, it became jammed.
Jammed.
Some accounts say the weight of the treasure
Oh, the treasure.
caused it to break.
Yeah, they're carrying so much.
Others say it was simply abandoned
Just left it.
in the chaos.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they're stuck
On the
causeway,
Aztecs closing in,
raining down projectiles.
attacking from all sides.
It's hard to imagine a more desperate situation.
Desperately brutal fight.
How did any of them survive this?
Many Spaniards drowned in the lake,
Oh my God.
weighed down by their armor and the treasure they were carrying.
Yeah.
Others were captured to later sacrifice.
Oh, wow.
The water, according to accounts,
Really?
ran red with blood.
Oh my God.
The air was thick with the smell of death.
It's hard to even imagine the terror and the carnage.
Yeah, it was awful. I remember reading that Cortez himself had a close call
He did?
during the escape.
At one point, he was knocked off the causeway
Oh, no.
into the water.
Into the water.
Luckily, one of his men saw him go down
Oh, wow.
and managed to pull him out.
Oh, my gosh.
But many others weren't so fortunate.
So the Noche Triste really just decimated them.
Decimated the Spanish forces.
So after a night of absolute chaos
Yes.
and horror,
Horror?
how many of Cortez's men actually made it out alive?
Estimates vary,
Yeah.
but it's believed that only about half
I have.
the Spaniards who entered the city that night survived.
Oh, my God.
Hundreds were killed,
Wow.
along with thousands of their indigenous allies.
Thousands.
And it wasn't just a loss of life.
Right.
They lost most of their horses, their weapons,
Weapons.
and the treasure they'd looted from the city.
What a crushing defeat.
It was a major victory for the Aztecs.
They must have felt so vindicated
No doubt.
to see these invaders who had so arrogantly
Eric.
taken their emperor hostage,
Yeah.
driven out of their city in such a humiliating way.
It was a major victory for the Aztecs.
A major victory.
But the story doesn't end there.
Okay.
The surviving Spaniards,
Yeah.
led by a wounded and devastated Cortez,
Stated Cortez.
managed to regroup at a place called Popotla, just outside Tenochtitlan.
Okay.
And it was there, under a giant cypress tree,
Cypress Tree.
that still stands today,
Wow.
that Cortez is said to have wept
Cortez wept?
over the loss of his men and the seeming collapse of his grand ambitions.
That image of Cortez weeping under the cypress tree,
Yeah,
it's almost Shakespearean.
it is.
You have this man
Yeah.
who just weeks before seemed invincible,
Invincible.
now reduced to tears by the scale of his defeat.
It's a powerful reminder.
A powerful reminder that even the most ambitious plans
Yeah.
can be undone by hubris and miscalculation.
It really is, but don't count Cortez out just yet.
Okay, so we end part 2 with Cortez licking his wounds.
Licking his wounds.
But you're telling me he's not done yet.
He is not done yet.
What happens next? How does he come back from this?
Yeah. That's a story for next time.
Okay. So last time we left, Cortez
Yeah.
and his surviving conquistadors, reeling from that harrowing escape from Tenochtitlan,
Yeah.
defeated, demoralized, and having lost so much during the Noche Triste,
It was a devastating setback.
it's hard to fathom how he could even think about mounting another attack after such a crushing loss.
But Cortez possessed an almost uncanny ability
Really?
to turn adversity to his advantage.
So he's one of those guys that can just take a punch and get right back up.
Yeah, he was a master strategist
Okay.
and a ruthless pragmatist.
Mhm.
He knew he couldn't take on the Aztecs alone.
So what'd he do?
So he focused on two key things:
Okay.
rebuilding his army and forging new alliances.
Okay, so instead of just charging back into Tenochtitlan,
Right.
he takes a step back and starts to think strategically.
Exactly.
Okay.
Remember, the Aztec Empire wasn't this monolithic, unified entity.
Okay.
It was made up of various city-states and groups,
Right.
many of whom resented Aztec rule.
So there were already cracks in the foundation
Exactly. Cortez saw an opportunity there
to exploit those
to
tensions.
exploit those tensions.
He basically played the role of a diplomat, right?
Precisely.
Going from group to group.
Promising freedom from Aztec domination.
in exchange for their support.
Exactly.
Ever.
He was incredibly skilled
Yeah.
at understanding people's motivations,
Okay.
their fears, and their ambitions.
So he knew how to play people.
He knew how to play people, and he was able to convince many indigenous groups
Yeah.
that their best chance of survival lay in siding with him against the Aztecs.
And one of his most important alliances was with the Tlaxcalans, right?
Absolutely.
The Aztecs' fiercest rivals.
They had a deep hatred for the empire.
Yeah.
The Tlaxcalans provided Cortés with thousands of warriors,
Wow.
fresh troops,
The troops.
that were essential for his eventual victory.
Essential.
They also provided him with crucial intelligence.
Okay, so they're not just fighting men, they're also like a source of information.
A source of information, exactly.
About Aztec military tactics.
The layout of Tenochtitlan.
That local knowledge proved invaluable.
Invaluable.
So Cortés has rebuilt his army.
Uh,
He's got the Tlaxcalans on his side.
but he still knew he couldn't just march straight back into Tenochtitlan
Right.
and expect a different outcome.
So what's his next move?
Instead of a direct assault, he opts for a siege.
A siege.
Cortés understood that Tenochtitlan,
Oh, yeah.
despite its imposing defenses,
Right.
was vulnerable.
In what way?
It was an island city,
Right.
reliant on supplies from the mainland.
Oh, okay.
By cutting off those supply lines
Oh, okay.
and bombarding the city with cannons,
Right.
he could gradually wear down the Aztecs.
And the siege of Tenochtitlan, as I recall,
Yes.
was a brutal affair.
Brutal.
Months of fighting, starvation, and disease.
It was one of the most brutal sieges in history. I mean, it must have been horrific for both sides.
Imagine Tenochtitlan,
Yeah.
once this vibrant, bustling city,
Right.
slowly being reduced to rubble
By Spanish cannon.
by Spanish cannons.
Wow.
The streets littered with corpses,
Oh, my gosh.
the air thick with the stench of death,
Oh, wow.
the Aztecs trapped and starving,
Yeah.
yet still fiercely resisting.
Wow. It's hard to even imagine the suffering.
Absolutely. And in a grim twist of fate,
What's that?
the Spanish unknowingly brought another weapon.
Okay, what's that?
Disease.
Disease.
Smallpox.
Smallpox.
A disease the Europeans were relatively immune to.
Okay.
Ripped through the densely populated Tenochtitlan.
So smallpox becomes this unintentional,
Unintentional.
but incredibly effective weapon
Incredibly effective.
in Cortez's arsenal.
Oh.
That's just devastating.
Thousands of Aztecs died from the disease.
Thousands.
Including their new emperor,
Oh, wow.
Cuitlahuac.
So this epidemic really weakened the Aztecs.
It depleted their ranks,
Yeah.
undermined their leadership,
Right.
shattered morale.
Smallpox was a major factor in their eventual defeat.
I would say so.
Yeah.
It tipped the scales decisively in Cortez's favor.
Right.
The Aztecs, already weakened by the siege,
Couldn't withstand the onslaught of this disease.
they just couldn't.
So after months of siege, starvation, disease, and relentless attacks,
It finally falls.
Tenochtitlan finally falls.
On August 13th, 1521,
August 13th.
the last Aztec emperor,
Okay.
Cuauhtémoc, surrendered to Cortés.
Wow. The once mighty Aztec Empire,
Gone.
which had seemed so impenetrable just a year before, was no more.
It was no more.
It's a staggering victory for Cortés,
It is
but also a tragic end
tragic.
to one of the most remarkable civilizations in the Americas.
It really is.
And the legacy of the conquest
Yeah.
is complex.
Complex and multifaceted.
Yeah.
The Spanish brought their language,
Right.
their religion,
Their culture.
and their culture to Mexico,
Forever changing the course of history.
forever changing the course of the region's history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what happened to the surviving Aztecs?
The city was in ruins.
Ruins.
The remaining Aztecs were driven out,
Driven out.
their temples and palaces destroyed,
Destroyed.
their treasures looted. Tenochtitlan was literally razed to the ground.
Razed to the ground.
And on its ruins, the Spanish built their new capital,
Mexico City.
Mexico City.
Wow.
A new chapter began,
A new chapter.
built on the ashes of the old.
The conquest of Mexico is a story of ambition,
Ambitionality,
resilience, and cultural clash.
a story that continues to fascinate
That's it.
and provoke us centuries later.
Yeah, and it's a story that offers us
Valuable lessons,
valuable lessons about the nature of power
the consequences of conquest
and the enduring human spirit.
in the face of overwhelming odds.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the fall of the Aztec Empire.